Hello, everyone. My name is Garrett Wong. I'm the Member Services Manager here at the Green Sports Alliance. On behalf of the entire Green Sports Alliance team, we hope all of you are staying well and healthy. And thank you for taking time to join us today. We're here at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and in the interest of trying to keep things on schedule, we're just going to jump right into it with a couple of introductions. But want to thank everyone and welcome you to the conversation today titled Tackling Food Waste Even During a Pandemic. We have a fabulous lineup from the likes of WWF and the Washington Nationals. Unfortunately, our friends at the New York Roadrunners were unable to join us today, but we're honored to mention some of their work in New York with City Harvest during today's Q&A discussion towards the back end of the webinar today. We want to thank LNS Captioning for providing our closed captioning during today's session. More information on how to use the service is going to be in your chat box on the GoToWebinar sidebar that you should be seeing on your screen. You'll also be seeing our videos and the slide deck on your screen. If you'd like to resize either of those, toggle the video feed or the slides, feel free to adjust those settings to your own personal preference. But we'll get right on in here, and I'll do my best to kind of be quick and to the point with our introductions today. But to start it off, we will be making both the slide decks and the webinar recording available following today's session. You'll find that in our follow-up email that we'll be sending to all of the attendees with access to both of these. It's also going to be housed on our Green Sports Alliance YouTube page, www.youtube.com/greensportsalliance. And several of our other recent webinars are also uploaded to that YouTube page. So feel free to take a look at some of those other topics that may interest you that we've done over the past couple of months. And feel free, of course, to email us at info@greensportsalliance.org if you have any questions on accessing older webinars for members or any of the other areas of questions that you guys may have. Another reminder, as we somehow find ourselves in the month of June, which is crazy to think about, we are rescheduling our 2020 summit, originally planned, of course, for this month. We're planning it for a later date as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all facing. More details will be coming soon and should be available on our Green Sports Alliance Summit website. Again, feel free to reach out to myself or other members of the team with any questions. And before we kick off, as I mentioned earlier, we will have some time at the end of this for a large chunk of Q&A with our speakers after each of them provide, some background and overview of the work that they're doing and diving deeper into this conversation of food waste within the sport and event space. So we encourage you to type in your questions into that questions box on the sidebar throughout the webinar, and we'll be compiling all of those notes and hopefully getting to as many of those submitted questions as possible. But now it's my pleasure to introduce our two esteemed speakers from WWF, and that would be Pete Pearson and Samantha Kenny. Pete Pearson is a senior director and leads WWF work on food loss and waste, helping businesses and communities understand agriculture's impact on wildlife and habitat conservation. Pete has 10 years of technology and grocery retail experience in companies including Hewlett-Packard, Accenture, and Albertsons. Has worked with public schools and hospitals as a sustainability and zero waste consultant, co-founded a sustainable agriculture nonprofit in Idaho, and co-produced a documentary film on local and regenerative agriculture at www.tolivelocal.com. And Samantha Kenny is a program officer on the food waste team at World Wildlife Fund US, where she manages work streams engaging the global food service and tourism sectors. Hotel Kitchen and 86 food waste platforms offer guidance to prevent and manage food waste in hotel and restaurant industries and have been adopted in operations around the globe. And she also works to coordinate the global WWF network on food loss and waste strategy. And I will pass it off now to Pete and Samantha, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be part of this. Are we going to pull the slides up as well? Perfect, they're here. Okay. Samantha and I were going to tag team and just talk a little bit about the programs that we have at World Wildlife Fund. And I think it's important for everybody first to know why we're even doing this work. World Wildlife Fund is a nonprofit that focuses on wildlife conservation. Can everybody see the slides still? I think I might have lost them. Garrett, is it paused or?
We should be, let's see, I'm trying to make sure everything is up and running. Can everybody see the slides still?
I'm not able to see them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. How about now? Can everybody see the slides?
We're good to go, yeah.
Perfect, sorry about that.
So I think everybody recognizes or probably recognizes our brand. World Wildlife Fund is a science-based organization. We work with companies all over the world and we strive to meet the needs of both people and nature. On the next slide, you'll see that, you know, what we're trying to do basically is understand the intersection of where wildlife conservation meets the needs of humans. We have offices all over the world, about 80 offices globally. If you go to the next slide. We work in these areas, so it's 6 work streams. We work in places you'd expect. We work on forest conservation, ocean conservation, work directly on wildlife habitat and anti-poaching campaigns, climate and freshwater. But the one that you probably don't recognize is our work in food and food systems. And when you look at some of the statistics on biodiversity loss, I think the next slide has that. We are facing some pretty stark and dire trends, right? Since 1970, we've seen a 60% loss in mammals, birds, amphibians, fish, vertebrates. And that biodiversity loss comes primarily at the hand of food and agriculture. So the next slide shows the statistic that we typically that we talk about. It's estimated about 70% of the biodiversity loss on the planet is attributed to food and agriculture production. Now, it makes a lot of sense when you peel the onion on this. What we have is the situation that in order to expand food production, we typically have to either plow up grasslands or we have to cut down forests. And so as the human population increases, but also more importantly, as affluency increases, we have to see food's footprint expanding. Now, what doesn't make a lot of sense is when you start to estimate how much loss and waste occurs in the system. Next slide, please. When you look at the impacts of food, you have a lot of impacts, both greenhouse gas emissions, chemical use, overexploitation of some of these resources. 70% or more of our freshwater use comes all into production of food and agriculture. And so when we waste food, when we waste the food that we grow, it's a waste of all these resources and inputs that go into food. And so this is the reason why we have a food loss and waste program at World Wildlife Fund and why we spend so much time trying to make sure that we value everything in the supply chain. Next slide. The intent overall is to freeze the footprint of food. It's to try to freeze our expansion into areas, into forests, into grasslands, and do something we call conversion free, right? Conversion free agriculture is our primary objective. Now, the only way we can really do that on a planet of expanding population and affluency is to reduce food loss and waste. Next slide. Our work has us working in 5 areas. So about 5 years ago, we set a strategy to work in these 5 areas. And one of the biggest areas has been hospitality. It's been working in catering and food service, you know, with restaurants, with hospitality, with hotels. And it's given us a unique insight into how these operations function and some of the challenges that places like baseball stadiums or sports stadiums all face when trying to do food service. And so we wanted to talk through some of the resources we have available. Next slide. Couple things we've done, some work on farms. We have an entire series called No Food Left Behind, which looks at food loss at the supply chain level. So what's happening now with farms? You may have seen some of the dumping of product or the spoiling product in fields that isn't going anywhere. This has now been amplified because of COVID-19. And so as the system, as the food system tries to restructure itself, we're helping to find ways to make sure that food gets rescued and goes to people in need, or is redirected to alternative market channels. And this is all, again, in our No Food Left Behind series. So we spent a lot of time doing research and proposing prototypes and different solutions. But on the next slide, this time here, you go to next slide, is the work that we've done in a platform. So in 2017, we launched Hotel Kitchen with the Hotel Association, and it was a project that was born from about 12 months of work within large catering operations. So what we did is we piloted this work with various hotels and catering operations across the country, and then we developed this toolkit, which is now made available to anybody for free. Anybody can go grab these resources. There's training, there's video platforms for employees, a full suite of materials that you can leverage and use. And again, it's all free to the industry. Now, we felt that it was important to maybe point this out for the Green Sports Alliance because so much of this is applicable to other areas. And I think it's very applicable in the event space and in stadiums and the things that we all are going to talk about today. So what I wanted to do is turn it over to Samantha, and she can talk more about the details of our Hotel Kitchen platform.
Thanks so much, Pete. Can everyone hear me okay? Thank you. Okay, so to dive a little bit deeper into the work on Hotel Kitchen, for just a little bit of background, 4 years ago, we convened the major players in the U.S. hotel sector with the help of the AHLA, the American Hotel and Lodging Association, to figure out the best way that hotels can measure and prevent food waste in their operations. From that convening, we were able to recruit 10 pilot properties in the U.S. to inform the development of this toolkit and the website that you see here. Both of these include really comprehensive guidance. It's both organized chronologically, and by that I mean from the planning of menus through procurement, prep, service, through to any donation efforts and disposal of any unavoidable food waste. And the guidance is also organized on our website by staff function. So anyone who works in a hotel can land here and find guidance that helps them improve their contribution in this way. So as Pete mentioned, the website has a ton of really great guidance, downloadables and resources that can be used in operations that are specifically designed for hotels, but really applicable in all food service work. And we did spend time diving deeper into the restaurant sector in the last year, which I'll speak more about in a few minutes. And I will mention that those resources are available in a number of languages and for different groups, which makes them just more and more useful in the food service operations where we're working. So Garrett, could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we approached the hotel industry with a similar theory of change that we bring to our work in all work streams. First, prevent waste whenever possible. That is what yields the most benefit for businesses, bottom line, and the environment. So when surplus food is still left over, it's important to find a way to donate it. You know, food is always food. If it doesn't end up eaten by your guests and customers, there's someone else who can make use of it. And then finally, if and when there's unavoidable and inedible food waste, it's important to do what you can to keep that out of landfills. And what underpins all of this work is separation and measurement. You see that listed here as Target Measure Act. We say what's measured is managed, so finding a way to separate and quantify the waste you produce is the most important step to controlling that waste. So to speak just for a minute on the importance of this strategy in light of COVID, so in the past few months, we've all really personally understood our role in food systems and how fragile they are. Food is valuable and important, and it can be difficult to get to people in need, especially in these unpredictable circumstances. So fighting food waste, the guidance, it doesn't really look different in the face of COVID, but the importance of doing the work couldn't be greater. In the face of stalled food resources and shrinking bottom lines and profit margins, more important than ever to avoid throwing procurement dollars into the garbage and keeping shared food resources off of your community tables. So the importance of measuring the food waste you produce to then prevent and manage it, it couldn't be more front and center right now. Next slide. So to dig a little deeper into the importance of measurement, I'd like to share an example from one of our pilots that underpinned our work on hotelkitchen.org. So I collected this data with one of our team members at a large convention-style hotel property in Orlando, Florida in 2017. We conducted this waste audit during a lunch buffet served for a consulting firm client that was holding a large internal conference for 3 days at this property. We gathered data on how much food was prepared for the 800 expected guests, what went eaten, and why it was uneaten. So of the food that this property prepared, and I'll mention it was a seasoned chef that was really dedicated to sustainability and being efficient. But even in that case, only 55% of what they made was eaten by the lunch guests. 45% of it went uneaten. We dug into what that uneaten food, the quality of that uneaten food, and found that more than half of it was recoverable, which means it was kept food safe at temperature in the back of house and could potentially be reused or routed to a donation or feeding program. 18% of the food was unrecoverable. The items were served but left over on the buffet, so they had to be thrown away. And almost a quarter were food scraps left on guest plates. So if you're looking here on the figure on the right, often excess overproduction is attributed to no-shows. So people that said that they were going to show up, but then didn't. But when we dug in, we found that actually less than a third of the uneaten food was attributed to no-shows, and that overly abundant portion sizes were actually responsible for more than 2/3 of the surplus. Now, this was a dedicated item-by-item waste audit conducted only once by an outside party, but we wanted to show this to show how strategic measurement can be. Just understanding what's going into your trash and why can present actionable steps to cutting down on waste in a really meaningful way. And at a property like this one that serves 3,000 guests on a back in normal operation days, this level of granularity can be a huge value add, even if this type of audit is only conducted a few times a year. So could you go ahead to the next slide?
If I could just jump in one real quick too. So
Sure.
the way I envision these types of audits happening is I think of like a luxury box situation at either an NFL stadium or a hockey stadium, where you have all this food service that's happening. Typically it's done more in a buffet or a catering style to each luxury suite. I mean, it is incredibly important, I think, to be conducting these audits periodically. They typically don't take a lot of work. I mean, it requires some planning. It requires some work to do upfront where you're sorting and measuring things appropriately. You don't have to go down to the item level, but without question, every single time one of these audits is performed, you learn something. Even the most seasoned professionals and chefs that have been doing this for 20+ years, they learn something. And on this case that Samantha's talking about, they knew we were coming. It wasn't a surprise audit, right? And so even like there's a bias, it's a measurement bias, that when they knew this was happening, they were shrinking a little bit of their portion sizing. They were trying to cut it so they made that they reduced waste and they didn't look bad in the audit process. But they still had a pretty high degree of waste. And so we can't stress enough, be planning these periodic audits throughout your calendar year. Target the places where you have the most high-end food, especially meats and proteins, right? Not only do those cost more, but they are going to have a higher environmental footprint. So adding this carbon intensity and the reasoning for doing this matters. I mean, that's something that's really important, is to do this audit.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I can't say enough what a learning process it is for everyone involved to work on one of these audits, and also how easy it can be to keep up consistent measurement. There's different solutions that fit different operations. So there's definitely a way to understand your food waste stream and find those strategic ways to curb it. Okay, Garrett, maybe the next slide so we can chat just quickly about our work with restaurants. So following the work on Hotel Kitchen, our team formed a partnership with the National Restaurant Association to develop a guidance similar to Hotel Kitchen, but specifically for the U.S. restaurant sector. So again, we spent time conducting pilots, this time at restaurants of different concepts, quick service, fast food, sit down, independent properties. And this was also, of course, informed by our previous knowledge of the importance of separation and measurement and the key drivers of waste we saw in other types of food service. So those pilots informed this new toolkit called 86 Food Waste, which presents all of our guidance and case studies specifically developed for the US restaurant sector. It was adapted into a website. You can find it at 86foodwaste.com, and it includes new tools like a food waste calculator to help plan menus with limited waste in mind, and a great new short and entertaining training video for restaurant staff, which I hope, if you're interested, you'll take a look at and enjoy. So please feel free to check out these resources as well as Hotel Kitchen to see all of the information and guidance and printables we've developed to see what well fits your operations there. Garrett, could you go ahead to the next slide? There is one topic that is increasingly pertinent in light of COVID and became clear as a priority while we worked with restaurants and hotels, and that's the importance of donating surplus quality food to support community feeding programs. So it's not always possible to perfectly predict service numbers, especially if you have a complicated operation where customers have multiple options or may choose not to eat or eat a lot. In this circumstance, running out of food is everyone's worst nightmare. So for that reason, it's important to have a plan to reroute surplus food for another use. And there are so many tremendous local feeding programs that support food insecure populations in the communities where you operate. A couple great resources listed here to find a donation partner include the Food Donation Connection, which focuses on rescuing prepared food, and Feeding America, which has a huge membership of food banks and local feeding programs all across the country. Another really cool option that may be available to you is local startups that connect extra meals with people who need them. So Last Call for Food is one such startup that operates in Washington, D.C. and parts of California. And its model allows for food service operations to post extra meals towards the end of their day for community members to claim and pay half price. So that actually includes a profit benefit as well. So it's worth a bit of research to see what options are available to you to make sure that any quality food that you produce ends up feeding people. Could you go ahead to the next slide, Jen?
I would say one thing too, Samantha, in light of COVID, that the way that you're doing your service operation may be changing. So you may be doing catered services to luxury boxes or in the stadiums to more of a grab and go type format, maybe less in the buffet style, it's actually really good in terms of food waste, because then the packing and being able to distribute any surplus is really easy. You've already done the preparation for that up front, and that donation can be that much easier. You don't have to spend staff time to consolidate things and get it ready for donation. It might already be ready. Now that the problem with that potentially is that you're increasing your packaging. You're increasing packaging and materials that potentially could be recycled, and so you have to weigh both of those together.
Definitely, and there's guidance coming out. I know the hotel sector and the National Restaurant Association, James Beard, they're all thinking through these problems together and have several really great resources on food waste, food safety, and packaging right now. I think one of the main points I'm seeing is that wrapping something in plastic doesn't always, it may show the perception of safety, but actually taking steps to speak with guests, speak with customers about the efforts being taken might also fill the same need of showing the safety measures being taken. So to wrap up, I've included a few things that you can think of doing right away as operations start up again and you're thinking about addressing food waste. The first step is always to start with measurement, even if it's a basic tracking program. Separating and measuring waste is the most important step to understanding what you can do to make improvements. And there are a lot of options that can right fit your operation. There are technology solutions that make things really easy and give you really strong data. There are manual tracking solutions that are quick to stand up and are really cheap. And there's lots of specifics on options for separation and measurement listed out on hotelkitchen.org if you'd like to check that out, or definitely shoot my team an email and we can send a link or offer some more guidance. So second on this list is to prioritize donation. Right now, it's really important that quality food ends up feeding people and not feeding landfills. There are lots of local programs you can support. There's a lot of online resources that can help point you to those organizations that need the most help right now. And finally, there is an effort to inventory stalled resources to support local feeding programs addressing food access issues that are on the rise due to COVID. Different groups are involved with looking to inventory storage space and human resources that could be put to use repacking and processing food. And my team and myself are deeply involved in those efforts. Space and human resources don't have to be donated either, but these efforts are looking to understand what resources are out there and how they can be activated, what it will take to make use of them. So look in your inbox if you receive a call to inventory some of your stalled resources right now. And if you're interested in hearing more about that effort, feel free to shoot us an email and we can take that conversation offline. You can go ahead to the next slide, final slide, Garrett. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. So here on the slide, you can see our team email address. We closely manage that inbox and are happy to field questions on any of the pieces of our work that we mentioned today. And I've also included the 2 URLs for Hotel Kitchen and 86 Food Waste if you'd like to dive deeper into our existing guidance and see what right fits your operation. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that, Pete and Samantha. That was a fantastic kind of overview of the industry right now, and really just, bringing all of this to the forefront and setting the stage for the work that's in front of us, and yet all of the opportunities that there are for us to improve. And I would love to now transition from this over to a sport team that we've seen here at the Alliance is really a leader in this space. And Jonathan Stahl over with the Washington Nationals, he's the VP of Experience and Hospitality for the team, in his current role overseeing the food service, retail, and ballpark experience. Of course, looking at some of the team's kind of original food concepts, looking at local craft beer, local source meats, produce into the ballpark, and of course being responsible for some of the sustainability programs and initiatives at the park. Jonathan, would love to bring you on and to talk about a little bit on just some of the growth and the history of the food and beverage program at Nationals Park. Would love to hear more on where it all started and even what the team's doing right now.
Thanks, Garrett. Thanks for having me, everybody. Food waste has been something that we've been looking at as part of our sustainability initiative since we opened the ballpark. We were the first LEED certified stadium in America, and we took that to heart. And while there are a number of things that went into the way the building was built, it was how we operated that was most important to us. And obviously we all have challenges, right? We're inviting people into our venue. In the baseball world, we allow people to bring in their own food. And so that complicates things even further. And so for us, we had to look at it from a number of different ways as to what we could do to eliminate waste and also make sure that we weren't putting as much product into the landfills as we once did. We've been working on this from a number of ways. Levy is our food service partner here in the ballpark, and we've been working with them first and foremost on looking from the back of the house. What are we ordering, and how are we making sure that we get them the data they need to order accurately? For a long time, teams may have been hesitant to share information about what expected attendance was, but we recognized that at the end of the day, that was costing us money. So it made no sense to limit the transfer of information with our partners, not just in the F&B world, but across everything that we do here at the ballpark, to make sure that they had the right data that they needed to operate from the onset. So that if they were only expecting 10,000 people into the ballpark versus they were expecting 40,000 people into the ballpark, they knew the right amount of food to prepare to make sure that our guests were happy, but so that we weren't throwing food out at the end of the night. So that was step one, in just getting information. Step two was starting to look at technology, and something that we've been doing over the last number of years. And so that is something that started off in a relatively manual process with spreadsheets and understanding what does food service look like during a typical sporting event, and making sure that we're trending that information, not just for a global set of data, but specific to day games, night games, weekend games versus weekday games, whatever it may be going on, so that we could look and understand how food was being consumed in the ballpark, making sure that we had enough food ready for the guests that were coming into the building, but that at the end of the night, we weren't throwing away nearly as much food as we used to, because staff wasn't just preparing food for the sake of preparing it. So that's something that we've been doing over a number of years. And I know that when I say these things right now, they seem very simple, but overall, these things were not necessarily being done, 10 years ago. And so it really took us as an organization championing this and making sure that all of our partners, again, not just in the F&B world, but our cleaning partners and others, understood that it was important to us that sustainability was at the forefront of what they were doing and how they operated, so that we could work on this together. So that process has now been automated in newer levels with technology being out there. It is much easier for our teams across the building to execute. And then, so that's limiting what we're putting out. And then at the end of the night, we're always going to have waste. But we know that. So what are we doing with that waste? And how do we start composting it and keeping it from going into landfills? And composting, again, is something that's existed for centuries, but on a commercial standpoint, it hasn't necessarily been available to all cities and jurisdictions. It's not something that's offered by the District of Columbia where we are. It's something that we had to outsource and go to a partner in Maryland to work with them. So I actually spent a number of trips going out to the composting facility, understanding what they did, how they did it, and making sure that they could take our waste at the end of the day. So we started off in the back of the house and making sure that everywhere that we had a trash can, we also had a recycling bin and a compost bin. We had graphics that we created for the staff to know what could go in each unit. We had color-coded trash cans and bags so that no matter where the product was along the way, whether it was leaving a concession stand, when it was getting down to the dumpster area, people knew exactly what bag needed to go in what area. Again, something very simple, but very helpful. So as we started to work with these composting partners, they can handle about a 10% rate of non-compostable material on contaminants. So that was something that we had to gauge. We wanted to make sure our staff didn't know that it was 10%. We wanted them to think it was less, but that if we got to that 10% point, it was still compostable product, and that they would handle the sorting of that at their facility. So again, we started with that on the back of the house and started seeing increased usage. We started with our main kitchens, then distributing these bins and receptacles out to every one of our concession stands throughout the building. But then we wanted to go even further, and so we took it to our guests. And the education of the guest is honestly a lot harder than it is of your own staff. They're less consistent, and to the point that I brought up earlier, they're bringing in their own product into the building, and so that's a challenge for us because we don't know what that product is. So for us, we started putting composting bins around the building and using that similar signage to educate our guests what the products that we were selling and that our food service partner was using could go in each one of these bins. And additionally, over time, we had an internal mandate that everything that we gave out was either compostable or recyclable if it was a single-use item. So that took time sourcing with our different purveyors to make sure that we could find every piece of product that could go into one of those two containers. Now, obviously, when you get into bags of chips and things like that, Frito-Lay and Nuts and companies like that haven't moved to a compostable wrapper yet. We've worked with our food service partner, Levy, to try to put some pressure on them and encourage each and every one of you guys to do that with your partners. We were able to work with Coke to make sure that all of the single-use cups became compostable cups. They no longer have that wax lining in them that prevents them from being a compostable product. And then for souvenir products, those people can take home. That is a plastic that is recyclable in certain jurisdictions. But those are some of the initiatives that we really started. And then lastly, we needed to know at the end of the night that there was food that was salvageable that could go to groups in use. So initially, about 6 years ago, we started partnering with a local organization called DC Central Kitchen. They were able to take our unused product, anything that was not cooked. That worked into their model, and they were then using those products to convert that food into usable meals that they were distributing. And DC Central Kitchen is probably the best organization for what they do in the world. They actually not only are feeding the hungry, but they are rehabilitating people that have come from less fortunate lives that may have spent time in prison, drug charges, whatever it may be, that are looking to get back on their feet. So they're taking those folks, they're training them, they're then employing them using the food product that we are giving them and others are donating to them, also that they're buying, and they have then taken that into feeding the hungry out in the community. but we wanted to do more. And so last year we were able to partner with a local Maryland-based company called Nourish Now, who actually takes our cooked product and has the means to distribute that within the community. And I know for a long time people have always been concerned about getting food out there and where does the liability land. So we have been able to indemnify not only ourselves, our food service partner, and then to my knowledge, no one has ever been sued from donating food. Again, that's to my knowledge, it may have happened, but, and so we were able to do that. And then in the last year alone, we were able to donate 77 tons of product to them that got distributed out into the community that did not go into the landfill. And that was huge. And that's a number that can consist of both, what we donated to them, but also what we were able to compost. And it's been a really great partnership and able to help us. And we're very proud of what we're doing within the community. So that's overall what our strategy has been. And I have to tell you that in order to make this a reality, the most important thing that you can do is make sure that somebody is a champion in your organization that is owning this and monitoring it along the way. Not only from a manager or director level that is out there in the weeds understanding it, but making sure that someone at the executive level leadership is taken on. So that way, as questions come up in board meetings, whatever it may be, and people are wondering, why are we doing this? Because sometimes these programs initially do cost more money than just letting it get thrown out. Trash is still the cheapest way to get product and things out of your building. So you want to let them know what we're doing and what we're able to do and how we've been able to help the community with these programs. So as we go into when we're not playing baseball, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we've done with World Central Kitchen. And for us, as you know, not only has food waste and sustainability been important to us along the way, but food insecurity has been a huge component of what we've done and what our sister organization, Nationals Philanthropies, our philanthropic arm, has done since their inception. You may or may not know this, but 1 out of 10 people in the country don't know where their next meal is coming from. It's a staggering statistic. And so for us, when COVID-19 hit, we knew that that challenge was going to be even bigger. We're very lucky that Jose Andreas's World Central Kitchen is in our backyard. They're home base for what they do. And if you're not familiar with World Central Kitchen, they're a disaster relief chef organization. And so they've gone into Haiti or Puerto Rico. And when natural disasters have hit in the past, they are in there and there are boots on the ground working to make sure that hot meals are getting to people. And they're very good at working in infrastructure when there is no infrastructure and figuring out how to build it and make it happen. COVID-19 was a very different thing. The infrastructure still existed. There were issues with the food supply chain, and there were a lot more people that were just unable to get food. So in late March, when we knew that the building wasn't going to be used for baseball initially, we reached out to them and asked them if they'd like to partner with us and if we could be of help. I toured them around the building a couple of times to understand what our building looked like. They weren't used to working in large spaces like we have, but we do have multiple kitchens with a lot of equipment that was able to allow them to mass produce food that was needed to get out to those who were in need. So by early April, in fact, on April 6th was the first day of operation here at Nationals Park. And by April 7th, we got 4,500 meals out that day. And we continue to get to manage about 5,000 meals a day, 6 days a week initially. Those numbers have changed over time till we're actually producing over 50,000 meals a week here today. And as of yesterday, we'd actually sent out over 423,000 meals to those in need in the community. We're doing that with anywhere from 70 to 100 volunteers here at the ballpark, utilizing 3 of our kitchens. And what this has also done is been allowed us to bring back some of our part-time staff who wasn't able to work. World Central Kitchen has funding to pay them, and they are, forklift drivers or warehouse personnel, people that are out helping, as well as some of our full-time food service staff and Nationals volunteers as well. We're feeding various parts of the region between the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. We're feeding those who are in need, as well as first responders in the area, as well as hospital workers. And so those meals are being picked up. We are not a distribution site here at Nationals Park. There are a lot of logistics we did not want to make happen for people coming here that needed to get a meal. So we are a distribution center. So through a partnership with Uber Eats, we're able to get people here that are driving. They pick up the meals and they take those out to the destination where there's a partner organization out in the community that's making sure those meals are being distributed. To our knowledge, this is the largest single site distribution World Central Kitchen has ever been a part of, and in about a week and a half, we'll have hit 500,000 meals out of Nationals Park. So thank you very much for having me, and I'm here to answer any questions that I may. Garrett, turning it over to you.
That was fantastic, Jonathan. Thank you so much for providing that. I'm going to pull up my video here as well and would encourage Pete and Samantha to do the same. We've got quite a few questions come in already, and I think this is fantastic to hear from both the WWF side of things and from the Nationals, just on what everybody has been doing amidst the pandemic and also prior. And I think first off, I would love to address this to, I guess, everybody in the group here, but I think especially given the global pandemic that we're all facing right now, maybe to pass it off to Pete first. And you kind of mentioned this earlier, but why is it so important that we focus on food waste now during the pandemic and as we start coming back into large gatherings and event spaces?
Well, I think first and foremost, there's going to be a strong need to make sure food is safe, that we run contamination-free food services. I mean, that's going to be top of mind for everybody. And so as we go into this redesign phase, so to speak, as we start recontemplating how we do these large gatherings, we might as well have as a design criteria to not waste food be part of that. I know, at least for me, outside of my family's health and my health, the thing that's really hit me the most with COVID is, where does my food come from? And is the grocery store going to have food? And so this idea of food security, I think, has hit everybody. And I hope we move into a world where we don't take it for granted anymore, where we really appreciate food, where it comes from, the sacrifices we have. And I don't think anybody wants to see, hundreds of tons of it go thrown in the trash every year. So I think we have a new set of criteria that we can design against.
Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I think Pete did a great job on that one.
Absolutely. Maybe if I could redirect one over to you, Jonathan, then. You talked about the importance of having leaders within the organization that are going to drive this, but maybe especially too on the holistic team that needs to be engaged in this. What other key partners would you identify as being the most pivotal kind of role players in making all of these pieces a success for your food service operations?
So I do think it's got to be something that the entire organization gets behind. So typically these things fall on the operations team or the facilities team. And so, but those are the folks that are unseen. So the more information you get out there within your organization and be able to get it on marketing platforms is very helpful. I think also finding ways to integrate it into your sponsorship team. For us, when you look at your waste partner, who are they and what are their capabilities? So maybe that can be part of that and part of their messaging. Waste partners today just don't want to be known as the company who is building a massive landfill in the suburbs. They want to be talking about how they're diverting that waste. So if they can be talking about how they're diverting a brand like Yours Waste and what they're doing with that, that's really beneficial for them. And that starts to permeate the messaging across the organization. And so as you form these partnerships, when you get that, when you understand what their capabilities are on the onset, that's really important. And also what their capabilities aren't, and making sure that your partnerships team are carving those components out so that if they can't do something, you're not prohibited from working with somebody else because of the way a contract was designed. And those are unintentional consequences when the right people aren't involved from the onset. And then just talking about it as an organization, whether you're having your town hall meetings or, as you talk to your partners along the way, we've created a group that we call Team Service that incorporates all of our game day partners here in the building, because every one of them has the ability to impact not only sustainability, but our other initiatives. So we make sure that that's a part of the continual conversation of what we want to accomplish and what we need from them to help get there. And so how can we partner on it together?
I had a question for you, Jonathan. one of the things that really struck us when we've been doing this work in the hotel industry is that cross-functionally, organizations don't always talk to each other. Like the culinary staff doesn't always talk to the stewarding staff who handles the dishes and the cleanup and the operation staff. And one of the things you said is you started sharing data cross-functionally on things as simple as like, this is how many people we expect to come in the stadium. That was really surprising to me. Do you think a lot of stadiums and a lot of operations don't share that data?
I think they do now, but I'm going back 10, 15 years ago when people were really hesitant to start sharing data. And so in some cases, as transitions have happened or people are still with organizations, sometimes I don't believe it's happening. And to your point, it's not just sharing, making sure that the top guy knows it, it's that everybody knows it, because that way they can all work out a little bit better. You know, some teams don't care as much. It's going to depend on what their relationship is with their food service partner and how they make money, right? Some teams just get a top line percentage of the revenue, and so the costs don't matter to them. And so if you have either a partnership structure or a fee-based deal where the team has a higher upside on the bottom line, they're going to care about these things a little bit more and probably be a lot more willing to share that information.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've always thought might be interesting is typically in operations like this, it's the operational teams that pay for the trash and disposal bills. And I've always thought, hypothetically, if you move that around and you had some of the people that actually create some of this food waste or create the waste actually on the hook to pay the bill in the accounting system, maybe that could change things as well. If people had more visibility to the data and had more ownership into actually the top line and the bottom line revenue, it might make a difference too.
Makes a lot of sense.
I love that, guys. I got a quick piece for Samantha, actually. I think this is in regards to both the hotel kitchen and also the 86 resource that you had pushed out. But I think a lot of our folks right now are looking at a space of constraint and limited, movement availability, especially given the pandemic right now. But what advice would you have for an organization or an institution that has that limited capacity, but still has, a team and leadership on that team that want to do more?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for the question, whoever put it in. And I think I could have interpreted it in two different ways, where there's limited space, like physical space, and then also limited capacity right now, given the circumstances, to do this work. So I would say there's a lot of groups that we've worked with that have limited physical space, and it's really about finding a solution that does work for you and controlling what you can control, finding a separation and measurement system that even if you can't have the same size bins, maybe downsizing bins, finding another way to count bags of waste or things like that. But for teams that do have limited capacity right now, given shifting priorities, I think it still comes down to separation and measurement, just so you know you're spending your limited time doing the most strategic things, the biggest bang for your buck. And in some cases, especially if you're a leader, it's about really pulling up high level talking points so you can share back with your staff the priority, the value of food to them, and ask them to start self-assessing, thinking about what they can do to cut down on food waste within their power, and really just starting to instill that culture. And right now, I think that connection is more clear than ever between stretching our food resources as far as we can and the need for that food in all of our communities right now. So thanks for the question. I hope that helps.
No, that was great. And a lot of folks actually right now are asking for the group to talk a little bit more on the safety and sanitation side of everything, especially amidst the pandemic. I mean, if anybody on the group kind of wants to answer this, feel free to jump in. But a lot of folks are, looking at, okay, within the space that you're looking at, how do you have, milestones or key steps to eliminate contamination, whether that's in the service process, if that's in transportation? I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on trying to mitigate all of those risks and still making sure that the visual and actual, operations piece of these new kind of reinventions that Pete is talking about? How do you make sure that these are up to, snuff with what everybody across the entertainment industry is talking about?
I can take a quick stab at it. I mean, listen, I think there's a lot of unknowns there right now, right? We're all trying to figure out what's coming next and how we are going to rebound as a country and as a world from COVID-19. So what does that look like from a contamination perspective? It's a little bit hard to say, but I think it's building upon practices that have already existed and making sure that we're being smarter about it. How are we controlling who we let into our building from a back of the house standpoint? It's going to be a little bit tough from a front of the house standpoint, but there's also things being done that way. For example, today with World Central Kitchen, you must have your temperature checked prior to coming into the ballpark. And there's a series of questions that you're asked every day to make sure that everyone that's coming in does not have a fever and has not, been in contact with anybody. And it's just a general reminder every day. Face masks are something that we probably haven't thought of as an organization from a food service standpoint, but something that are going to be around for a long time. And are we utilizing proper face masks? And how are we making sure that face masks aren't hiding hospitality? So what are we thinking about in that? Because we are all, at the end of the day, with all of these things that we're talking about, we're still in the hospitality business. So we need to make sure that we're creating those emotional connections with our guest, even when that face is behind a mask or behind a plexiglass wall. So there's a lot of factors that we're thinking about that go in just on the back of the house. So, staff in most states were always supposed to wear gloves. So are you wearing gloves? How often are you washing your hands and reminding staff that they do that? If you're wearing gloves, you can't put hand sanitizer over them. Again, to us, that may seem simple, but educating people along the way is really important. Technology is also going to be a huge factor in this. How many steps does it take from a hamburger to come into your building and end up being a guest taking a bite out of it today? And in those steps, how many different people are coming in contact with that product, right? It's not necessarily, it's still an important part, but not necessarily as big of a deal if that meat is frozen in a sealed container in that box. But the second it comes out from the freezer, how's it being temperature controlled, which is something we should always have been worrying about. And then where is it going from there? And so what is it, people ordering from their phones, something that has existed in our everyday lives and permeated them very often, but not so much in stadiums. No one's really figured out how to make that work in stadiums. And so, and what type of packaging are you using for that food, right? No one would, someone joked with me recently, many of you may have seen it, but there's hot dog vending machines, right? The hot dog is in a bun, in a pouch, and you purchase it from the vending machine, it microwaves it, and then you get a hot dog. Well, no one wants that at a ballpark. That's not the experience they're looking for. So we don't want to go to that hermetically sealed bag, but we want to figure out how is that hot dog packaged and taken care of. So it's being served in a clamshell. For a long time, no one wanted a wrapped hot dog. They wanted an open hot dog because you wanted to show the freshness of what it was. Well, I don't want to go back to the soggy wrapped hot dog, so I'm gonna have to spend a little bit more in hopefully compostable packaging that is, a clamshell that keeps that hot dog from anyone being able to touch it. And then I no longer have an open condiment station because I don't want people, cross-contaminating that. So I'll be going to, individual packets, or we have a manned condiment station. Those are all the different things that are being factored, and that's just on the concessions level. Pete talked about earlier the suite. Right, the suite is a mini buffet. You've controlled the people that are going into that suite, but you don't know where those people were before they came into that room. And so, can I put that? Do I want to even just put that liability on a suite holder? Because at the end of the day, we're probably going to take some of it as well. And so, what does that look like in today's world? These are things we haven't 100% figured out yet. But it could be moving to more of an a la carte menu versus that, massive pre-order menu where food is just sitting out there. Or maybe instead of putting all of the chicken breasts out there at once, we're putting them out 3 at a time, so that way less people are touching them in the suite. But that means that we're going to have more staff on the back of the house being more reactive to what the needs of that various suite are. Again, it will help overall reduce waste in general, which is a great thing, and it will keep people safer. But there are consequences to doing that, and we just need to make sure that all of this works in harmony. So I'm sure everyone here is working with their partners to figure it out, and also at the end of the day, It's going to change by sport because the expectations of your guests are going to be different. If football is able to come back in the fall, the world's going to look at a little bit differently than when baseball may come back next spring. And so the expectations of clientele are going to be different if there's a vaccine or what's happening. So there's a lot of, I probably gave a lot of answers, but I may have asked more questions than answers in that statement. But those are things that we're all figuring out today.
Absolutely. Peter, Samantha, anything you want to add on just this kind of reassurance, both for any stakeholders, whether it's fans and attendees or even staff and stadium operators, on the safety and kind of sanitation piece around food waste and food service?
Yeah, I mean, I think the worst thing that could happen is we make a lot of knee-jerk reactions in the name of food safety, but don't really have the data to back up what is safe or not. I think, to Jonathan's point, like, you still want to be able to hold on to that experience that people want. And that's going to be really important. But I think at a minimum, what this does is just encourage us to retrain and make sure that food safety is still top of mind. And when we think about these food safety intersections, they're really good for reducing food waste as well. And I love Jonathan's example, like maybe the buffet goes away in terms of how we knew it before, and we're making sure that everything does move to an a la carte type menu. It does require more service on the back end. It requires more human interactions, but all those examples are things that we've actually advocated for in the name of food waste reduction. Now it's going to be a function of the new normal and trying to define that new normal in the name of food safety and health, public health.
I completely echo both Jonathan and Pete. I think they're really spectacular ideas and thoughts that both put forward, especially in this specific context. And then just to say on a more general note that the FDA, the CDC, National Restaurant Association have guidance that is up right now on restaurants reopening. And I know the operations are a little bit different, but they do have food safety in mind, and there's a way to kind of review the guidance that's out there for other food service sectors to make sure those same principles are being reflected, best practices in your operations.
No, absolutely. I love this, guys. I know we've only got a couple more minutes here, but hopefully we can get through maybe 2 more questions here before we check out for the hour. One of the pieces that we had been talking about, and I think especially you, Jonathan, specific to just educating both your internal staff, your temp staff, and even your attendees as well in terms of how to, best mitigate and use the tools and resources that the Nationals are providing for the fans, given the 3-bin system and all these different things. For you guys at Nationals Park, I mean, have you found that with the temp staff, the training and the signage, that this has all been kind of sufficient enough, or what more do you think could be done across the industry and within the ballpark to kind of help at least slowly cut back on even some of these second sort back of house pieces that you guys may have to be doing?
Well, we can definitely always do more. And, you brought up the point of temp staff, which definitely makes things a bit challenging. So, we've worked with our partners to make sure that everybody who's coming into Nationals Park, whether they are a full-time employee or a part of a temp staffing group, has to go through a certain level of training. That's just basic training that and this is part of that basic training. I won't tell you that it's successful 100% of the time because I'd be lying to you, but it's constant reinforcement, making sure that there's additional signage and not just static signage. I think an area where we could definitely improve is we're really good about putting up a sign and leaving it there. But that sign becomes second nature and people walk by it constantly because, oh, that red sign's been at the wall. Well, maybe next time that red sign is orange or blue or yellow or whatever it may be, and kind of keeping things fresh to remind people and changing the wording a little bit. It's not a one and done scenario. This is just a constant component of how we operate. It needs to be in the lifeblood of what we do. And so that's to me where we can definitely do a lot more. And I think it's about, again, working with as many partners. If in an ideal world, 100% of what we put out would be compostable, but there's just certain things that aren't out there yet that make things for compostable. And so there's a combination of compostable and recyclable. As we move towards that, I think that will help a lot. And so you're seeing that a lot more. There's more companies out there that are making compostable cutlery or compostable containers. So you as an organization have to choose which one, sorry, my lights went out, what you want. And if you want to try to make everything recyclable, that's one thing. If you want to try to make everything compostable, that's another. To me, I recommend compostable because at the end of the day, you're going to have food waste that has to be composted. And so how much, what can you do to simplify the operation? And again, for us, it's been an evolution. We aren't at the point where we are today. We weren't even there 3 years ago. It's a constant change. And so just completely evolving and thinking about what is next and what does it look like? And again, just constant messaging. How can you get on the scoreboard? How can you make that a part of who you are? There are organizations that have tried to become zero waste organizations. It is very hard to do. I mean, I think in baseball, the highest diversion rate is about 97%, which is unbelievable, but that's hand sorting every piece of trash out there. And those of us in urban environments don't have the space to do that, and it makes it really difficult. So we just have to kind of think a little bit outside the box and look about what's next. We were talking about, there's a company in Australia that's doing reusable cups where you send them back and you sanitize them. Pre-COVID-19, that was a really interesting idea, but right now, no one would want to see that. At the same time, there's the Super Bowl used them this year, but they're talking about aluminum cups as opposed to plastic because aluminum is much easier to be recycled than it is plastic. It's also a trigger. Somebody sees metal, they've been recycling that for a lot longer, so they think about it. But the costs aren't there yet, right? The cost of a metal cup, I think, is about 10 times the cost of the plastic cup, and they can't mass produce them right now anyway. So, I think as those things evolve and we as stadiums and larger organizations push for these things, we'll see bigger changes.
I love that, Jonathan. And I think you answered the question that I actually wanted to end with. So maybe I'll pass it off to Pete and then Samantha. But especially as we look here at this, during a pandemic, how we can still tackle food waste conversation. Our friends over the New York Roadrunners have been donating food out to folks throughout their communities and being able to give back to City Harvest, even as some of their events over the past couple of months have been canceled. But even into looking into the future, where would you guys see kind of the next steps and the perspective of this conversation? And what are kind of some of your final thoughts here as we close out the hour?
For us, we want to see more stadiums and more institutions focusing in on the things we mentioned up front. Prevention first mindset. Right? It's always best to prevent food waste if you can, or organize your service so that donation is possible and actually encouraged. Make sure that your whole staff is trained and it's a cross-functional effort. And then at an absolute minimum, make sure that you're trying to do as much as possible to keep it out of landfill, to keep food waste out of landfill. I think if you do those things, that donate, prevention, diversion, that's going to be a successful thing. And try to gather as much data as you can all the time. Like always have good data and be willing to share that across the industry, measure things. That's my final thought.
And I'll just end, I completely echo what Pete said and what Jonathan said. My final word is we're all going to have to get used to the idea of a new normal. So food service operations are going to look different on reopening in every case. So to think about how our operations can work really well for our customers, for our staff, and for our communities, we're all deeply embedded in a food system, and that's more clear now than it ever was before. So just finding the ways that we can best serve all of those communities that we touch into the future.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. This was such a great conversation. As we kind of close out the hour here, want to shed some light on some future webinars that the Alliance are going to be doing here in the next couple of weeks, looking at a venue reentry tool amidst COVID-19 that the Green Sports Alliance is working on with the U.S. Green Building Council, and also our conversation on renewable energy in sports with some of our friends over at Constellation, Reba. Jonathan mentioned earlier the Ball Corporation, looking at their aluminum cups, and then also Loyola Marymount University and others. But again, thank you all for spending your time on this webinar today with us, and looking forward to jumping on to the next conversation with everybody. But thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Garrett.